From eerie van camping experiences to unsettling wilderness encounters and even exploring abandoned campsites, these real-life events will send shivers down your spine. Whether you're a seasoned camper or just curious about the dark side of the great outdoors, these stories are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. In April 2019, a YouTuber by the name of Jason uploaded a video on his channel. The video contains content from his solo camping trip to the mountains. The hike up the mountain was uneventful. Nothing special happened. As soon as he got to his planned campsite, he set up camp, then proceeded to record his surroundings, showing his viewers as he began starting up a fire. Jason carefully waited for the sun to set and decided to engage in some spoon carving since he had become too bored. Not long after he began carving the spoon, he heard a really strange sound coming from the distance. Having never heard the sound before in his life, he decided to write it off as a bird sound or some other small, loud animal. He then continued to set up his tent, ignoring the sound he just heard. Around 9 o'clock, he concluded it was time to call it quits for the night. After turning off his camera, he closed his eyes and drifted to sleep. Not even an hour after he closed his eyes, he woke up again to the same strange sound. Now this made him ask questions. What could it be? What could be causing the sound?
I'm still rattled. I've never heard anything like that in my life. It sounded like a mix between almost like a pig. Some kind of, I hate to even say it, but a pig, an ape, and the calls almost sounded like how the velociraptors communicate with each other on Jurassic Park. I've never heard anything like that in my life.
He stated that it sounded like an eerie animal call, but he couldn't identify the exact animal since it came from quite far away. After his nap was cut short, he tried sleeping again, and a few hours later, around 1 a.m., his slumber was interrupted. He heard sounds of what seemed like something circling around the tent. On careful inspection of the clip, one would seem to notice a set of eyes reflecting the light from his flashlight. It's quite likely these could have been wild dogs, wolves, or coyotes, but they often try their best to avoid human interaction. Dogs' eyes do not give off a yellow reflection, they give off a white reflection, and considering that this happened deep in the night, it is quite unlikely that a dog would be wandering around the mountains so close to the campsite. Coyotes and wolves are rarely known to attack humans. They only attack when they feel threatened or when their cubs are with them. And this wasn't the case with Jason. He was just a guy on a camping trip. But if this were to be the case though, Jason was really in grave danger. The funny part is that he didn't seem to notice the glowing eyes in the frame when he scanned the area with his flashlight. He then proceeded back into the tent, sleeping through the night safely. When he woke up, he did another update, explaining that it was time for him to leave, and that's the last we know of his adventure into the mountain. August 2nd, 2024. This seemed like a regular day, so YouTuber Gaz decided it was perfect to go camping. His YouTube channel, Grizzly Gaz, is quite popular for featuring what he calls wild camping explorations and trips. He then got on the road, and upon arriving, he parked at his pre-planned spot, which was in a secluded space. He went on to explore ancient ruins and shared a nice relaxing evening with his dog, his loyal companion. As the night drew nearer, everything became calmer. After a walk with his dog, he headed to bed, ready for a good night's rest. Not long after he drifted to sleep, he was woken by the sound of an eerie creature. He claimed it sounded as if someone was screaming. He then wondered if it was a type of bird because this sound was unlike anything he had ever heard before.
I ended up lying down for a bit, but I ended up just drifting off to sleep. It's been peaceful though, but I've just woken up to what sounded like someone screaming. Can't figure out what that is.
With confidence, Gaz stepped out of his van into the dark forest, his flashlight like a sword cutting through the darkness. But as he scanned around, there was nothing odd or out of the ordinary. After a little while, he was able to gather the confidence to head back into his van for the night, and he eventually drifted off to sleep. What could that noise have been? No one knows. Rhodey is another YouTuber dedicated to living off the grid. In December 2017, Rhodey uploaded a video of an incident that took place earlier that year while he was camping in a parking lot. He noticed a hooded man walk up to his truck and start taking pictures of his license plate around 1:30 a.m. This seemed super suspicious. Why would someone come to take pictures of another person's license plate at such an odd time of the night? The hooded guy had no idea there was someone in the car because the area where the car owner was sitting was pitch black. So the hooded guy continued walking around the car multiple times as if he were observing something about it. But as this went on, the car owner just kept recording. The hooded guy, curious about what was inside, decided to point his flashlight into the car. The car owner decided it was time to take action to protect both his life and his car, so he banged on the car window multiple times, alerting the hooded man of his presence. With this action, the hooded man made a run for it. It's still unknown what he had planned to do, but based on his actions and dodgy movements, he was probably trying to carjack the vehicle. The car owner was able to escape safely and decided it was best to park his car in a more lively area to avoid such incidents. Noah went camping alone in the forest near Sun River, Oregon. Deep in the night, he was resting inside his truck, about to drift to sleep, when something very unexpected happened. As he lay in the back of his truck, he was woken up by the sound of footsteps traversing around his truck. Before he even attempted to sleep, he initially made sure there was no one around to ensure he would be safe throughout the night. But hearing the sound of the footsteps filled him with fear.
I'm currently sleeping in the back of my truck right now. I don't even know what time it is. And there's someone walking around my truck right now. If you can hear that, it's pretty loud.
As he checked his phone, it was about 2:30 a.m. when this happened. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped, the silence only adding to the suspense and filling Noah with more fear. Then he heard sounds that were like knocking on his doors, but after failed attempts, the person seemed to walk off.
He's literally knocking. Knocking on my truck. The canopy, the back door's locked right there. I'll start forever. I don't think he knows that there's anyone in here.
Noah woke up and decided to drive back home. Upon getting home, he revealed to his audience the new, noticeable changes he saw. His truck was riddled with various handprints and new scratches, confirming the idea that someone attempted to break in. This YouTuber Love Sundays is a solo camper and adventurer. He prefers going on camping trips alone in the United Kingdom. In a video he uploaded in September 2022, he shared what happened one night when he camped on the side of a road in Cornwall. Technically, he wasn't allowed to camp there due to parking regulations, but he did his best to hide the fact that he intended to camp there. As the sun was about to set, he made his way into his van to prepare a meal for himself, making as little noise as possible to avoid people catching on. Around 9 p.m., he decided to call it a night. His expert plan to camp on the side of the road seemed to be a success until things suddenly went south. Around 2 a.m., he heard a sound coming from outside his van. It's quite common for a police officer to ask a camper whose vehicle is in the wrong place to move.
Okay, I think they've gone. They literally tried to get in the van. It wasn't just a knocking, they were trying to handle.
But this seemed like the least likely option because it was already about 2 a.m. So most police officers are either on their way home or struggling through the night for their night shift. Even if it were the police, they would have knocked or announced themselves before trying the door handle. So, the most likely scenario was that someone tried breaking into the van and failed. Luckily for Sean, the thief was so lazy he didn't bother trying after a few seconds. Sean woke up the next morning recharged and ready for his next adventure. This next eerie sight whilst camping occurred in Belgium, where YouTuber Ciaz and 2 of his friends decided to visit an abandoned campsite. On December 29, 2023, Ciaz and his friends arrived at the abandoned campsite, and something frightening happened almost immediately after they stepped out of the car. They heard dogs barking, and the sound seemed to come from somewhere deep in the woods. As they approached the entrance of the forest, they saw an obstacle that served as an entrance or blockage. The sign on it read, "Private. This is a place of prayer. Please respect the space." Another sign at the back of it also said, "Beware of watchdog." Ciaz, who seemed to have been there before, explained that he didn't see that sign the last time he visited the place. It seems these boys were very brave because they ventured forward without fear. Not long after they began walking, they heard some weird sounds. They said it sounded as if a door was opening at that moment. They then had a conversation amongst themselves where one claimed it was the sound of a door opening, while another claimed it was the sound of an animal.
Ja, ik hoor... Ja, hoort je het? Die deur, die wint niet. Ik hoor zo... Zeker? Ja. Oh, nee. Waar is dat? Dat was een deur. Dat is een deur, hè? Hallo?
Despite all the signs that they should leave, these boys, thirsting for adventure, asked for permission to continue. So, they continued through the forest on a walking path, just to make sure they were not on private property. It's important to recall that at the entrance of this forest, the rope was decorated with red and white ribbons, and there was a sign that stated "No access," and also said, "This is a private area with camera surveillance." But the boys stubbornly continued onwards. As they moved deeper into the forest, they heard something that sounded like a shout or a scary laugh. Out of fear, they decided to switch off their flashlight quickly as they waited for the sounds to stop.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Dat is toch niet mijn auto of zo, hè? Hier wordt letterlijk iemand gemarteld in dat bos. Dit is heel fucked. Dat is geen licht, kijk. Dat is geen licht. Dat is heel fucked. Dus... Maar... Kom gewoon verder.
Now, there was conflict in opinions once again. Someone wanted to make his way out, but Ciaz said no. They should continue further into the forest. After some time, the creature they seemed to notice earlier also turned off its flashlight. Footsteps lurked closer to them when they decided it was high time to turn their flashlights back on. As their light came on, a flashlight was also noticeable in the distance. Out of curiosity, the boys created the incoming creature. What they saw shocked them, leading them to scatter, running in multiple directions. It was a woman dressed in white, who appeared to have a lamp in one hand and an axe in the other. Now this is scary. The tape shows one of the boys running without care. He stopped worrying about whether he was on private property and just dashed. That's what fear can do. One of the boys then decided to call the cops, begging them to make their way over to his location. He narrated the whole story of what happened, that fast. Not long after, the cops arrived, and a confused woman was seen emerging from the woods. The cops then succeeded in calming her down, and the YouTubers went home with a memory they would never forget.